So the title is Reformation in the Church of Science, and this is a piece I wrote with Dan Sarevich here on the journal, on the online journal, on the journal The New Atlantis, which is also in paper, not only online. And our thesis is how the truth monopoly was broken up. So we look at post-truth as some kind of loss of monopoly. I'll try to explain what we mean by that. We start from the official narrative, which is that we live through a pandemic of lies. So that the reaction to this pandemic is to try to get the facts straight. We need better science communication. We need false fact checking. The Washington Post give you with 5 digits precision the number of lies made by Donald Trump, which is already should make you a bit suspicious of all this precision. Another journal, the New York Times, says that plots to the election of a reality czar to check on the fact. This is clearly, again, all this goes in the direction to say that post-truth is a perversion of an otherwise well-ordered society. This is the thesis we contrast or we contest. As we said, what we are witnessing now is a loss of monopoly on truth. You will ask what this picture is, but this will be clear toward the end of the talk. We are aware that this is a dangerous terrain to move on because many people wish to cling to the order whereby truth is managed by relevant institutions, so that truth is truth, lies are lies, and those institutions look so that nobody try to blur the difference between the two. But we know from history that what seemed once upon a time stable regimes of truth maybe may collapse. This is Beato Angelico with the Last Judgment. Now, not many today would believe in the Last Judgment, but there was an epoch in our history where this was considered the real as it could possibly be. But how did we get there? Well, with Ansarevich, we said we identified 3 stages for this transformation. The first one was with the first media of mass communication, radio and television, and Adorno and Horkheimer were, in one chapter of this fantastic book, they were really amazed of how lies and hype would become common currency for the product, for the sale of a commercial product. So in a sense, those media normalize the application of hyperbole, of superlatives. Today, for us, this is strange because even in science, you have this today. You know, you are always invited to hype your product, to brand yourself as a product. So, you know, you have this new kind of, how shall I say, legalized use of lies. A second phase of this transformation was, as we were discussing before the talk began, when science became crucial in adjudicating many societal issues, increasing both in power and in relevance. We thought that this debate between Linus Pauling and Edward Teller on the possible consequence of nuclear fallout and nuclear war marked the stage where an entire nation followed a debate where science, religion, worldview mixed together in a way which was hardly too easy to separate. So it was clear a case where the boundary between science and policy was being blurred. 2 books which I think capture this moment very well is a book from Jerry Ravitch I mentioned before in 1971, Scientific Knowledge and its Social Problem, but also the very much contested book of Paul Feyerabend, Against Method. I think understood this pretty well. Clearly, in spite of this transformation, the leader of science attempted to have the best of both worlds. On one hand, defending the virtue of the free search for truth, or if you wish, science as some kind of ersatz religion. But on the other, also to promise science as the carrier of useful service and the road to progress and betterment. This is where post-normal science came in. This is an article published in 1993, which is the most quoted on the topic. So since science deals with uncertainty which are non-reducible because of the messy, someone would say, wicked problem we have at the intersection between nature and society, science will be used to take decision, but precisely for this reason, it will also be contested. So it was clear that a new approach was needed, which was the approach of, and this is where it becomes very difficult to say what the approach is, but fundamentally it is to have a more humble approach to science, an invitation to consider science as one among many possible way to realize, to debate about an issue which has social implication and ecological implication and so on and so forth. And if you want, what this takes issue against is a kind of mentality or a culture where each issue is simplified, reduced in complexity and treated with standard tools, very often from an economic textbook. And the third stage of this transformation was with the new media, which changed dramatically the landscape of communication. And here is where scientific institutions themselves lost the monopoly over factual claims. This becomes more intelligible if you accept that there is a strict relation of legitimacy between trust in science and trust in the prevailing social order. The two are clearly and strongly associated. This book from Shapin and Schaeffer is the first one. Even before Latour, this is the first book which made the point very, very clearly. In this paper written with my colleague Paul-Marie Boulanger, we use the theory of Niklas Luhmann to say that science can only work as part of a fiduciary system, which allows science to use your own code of communication, which is true-false. But science is irritated by the new media, by the economy, by the policy, and then we have a situation of conflict in which science even loses its specific characteristic. In this situation, clearly confidence is replaced by conditional trust. And this is visible in everyday life. We had recently a pandemic of COVID, and we have seen how there was an inexhaustible supply of competing narrative on everything which had to do with this pandemic, even by experts with very right credentials. Some of you may remember the Barrington Declaration and all what that came after it. So the more the authority insists on the factiness of facts, the more people tend to suspect this to be some kind of construction or machination of conspiracy, especially among young people. Those who have young people at home will know this. And what can we learn from history? And I think that this happened before. This precisely happened with the printing revolution, when millions of books were printed in a few years, from Treaty of Demonology to the translation of the Bible. But the printing press permitted other things like religion, music, pornography to roam free. The church lost its monopoly on truth. The church made its Index Librorum Prohibitorum to say which book should not be read. But this action of the church didn't actually work. At the same time, this revolution in the printing press opened the way to a religious revolution, you know, the Reformation, roughly 100 years later. And after that, one more 100 years of religious war, culminating then in the Peace of Westphalia and then birth of the nation state. So someone living through all this probably thought that this was the end of an era, was really something scaring, a period of heresies and confusion, witnessing how many different kind of religion were popping up simultaneously. In this period, more witches were killed than in any other period of history. So this was really a period of tumultuous, and it was not a kind of if this was a direction of progress, the direction of progress came with many horrible things on the side. On the other hand, many would say the Reformation was what did away with fake news, like, for instance, the traffic of indulgency. Here you have Monk Tetzel, or fake news such as the Jews eating Christian children. And this is what this picture is about. You also see again the same Jews desecrating sacred wafers. These were clearly fake news, which were demolished by the Reformation, in a sense. And the index of the church was defeated by the Protestant librarians, which had a more liberal attitude. So as soon as one book was declared forbidden by the church, it immediately became popular and sexy and could be sold by the Protestant librarians. Here you have a picture of Elsevier in side to side with the University of Leiden. So the internet has, in a sense, give a great advantage to these centers against top-down institutional scientific communication. So the way science is communicated really changed, and you cannot imagine that you can easily use the same kind of media to reverse the situation. So, and here, this is, I think, the last slide of my presentation. So those who lament the death of truth should instead acknowledge the end of a monopoly system, and as a consequence, they should maybe reflect more on managing this transition to something new, which we don't know yet, but which we absolutely need if we are not to fall into, you know, the 100 years of the religious war, which happened after the introduction of the printing press and the Reformation. Okay, this is my talk. I'm finished. Thank you for listening.